I'm going to talk about the six paramitas tonight. Actually, I'm going to talk about the first of the six. And we've done this before. And in fact, some of you, I'm sure, have heard us talk about this. Um, we did a foundations course on the six paramitas. Um, but I think it's something that's worth repeating and doing with some regularity, like the precepts. I personally find studying or sitting with the paramitas to be the most accessible of the various expressions of how we aspire to live our lives and what gets in the way. So let me take a minute and do a just a quick overview of what the paramitas are, and then I'll get into talking about the first of the six. And my thought is to, over time, not necessarily every week, but perhaps to stretch this out a little bit, but to get through all six of them in time. I hope that's interesting to folks. And many of you know already, I'm sure, I refer you to Norman Fisher's outstanding book, The World Could Be Otherwise, which is a study of the paramitas. And like Nancy Baker's study of the 10 grave precepts, it's seminal, I think. It's a tremendous piece of work. Paramita is a Sanskrit word. It's a Buddhist term that's often translated as perfection. Oh, by the way, Myoshan, are we recording? Good, thank you. Often translated as perfection. Sometimes you'll hear these referred to as the six perfections. And in some commentaries that we hear the paramitas referred to as noble character qualities, generally associated with enlightened beings. You've heard me say this before, I think, but in our practice in Buddhism and then in the much more contained Zen practice that we do, we have all kinds of lists. And especially for people who are just beginning, I think this can be kind of daunting or off-putting. We've got three treasures, three tenets, three pure precepts, four bodhisattva vows, four noble truths, six paramitas, the Eightfold Path, 10 grave precepts, the 10,000 things, and many more. So it's easy to be confused or to feel like, the expectation here really is that we memorize and integrate and learn and be able to speak confidently about all of these various lists and things. And most importantly, to integrate them all into our lives. And I'd encourage you to avoid feeling that way. Try to set that aside if you can. There's no expectation that any of us will do that. And many of us grew our understanding or appreciation for, practices like the paramitas over years and years and years of practice. And they slowly open up. If you approach them like koan, then you can work with them one by one and at your own pace. I also know that the term perfections can also be a bit intimidating. As I sit before you here, a very imperfect being. So again, like the precepts, like the 16 precepts, the 10 grave precepts, the three treasures, and the three pure precepts, the paramitas they're tools that we use to wake up. They're tools we use to forget our small self and, like Maizumi Roshi would say, to appreciate our lives. And as such, we'll never arrive or be finished with this. Later on, when we finish, we're gonna chant the 4 Bodhisattva vows, and we use the expression inexhaustible delusion. In English, these 6 perfections or paramitas are generosity, ethical conduct, patience, joyful effort, meditation, and understanding. You'll most often encounter these in their Sanskrit titles. Briefly, just with a real brief description of each of the 6. Dana Paramita, generosity paramita, the perfection of generosity, opening our hearts to ourselves, to others, and to the abundance of life, giving of oneself, giving time and support where needed, when needed, with no thought of return. And this is the one we're going to get into a little more deeper tonight. But if I can find it here, I want to just take a quick left turn and share something. I just traded texts with Kyoto Sensei, and he asked, he knew I was going to do this tonight, please let the Sangha know how grateful we are for all the generous support we have received. And also, please share with people that we're moving into the first phase of a treatment protocol this week, and things will settle down considerably. Prospects for success are good. So he wanted you to know that. Dana Paramita, generosity. Sila Paramita, the perfection of ethical conduct, paying attention to our thoughts, words, and deeds, turning away from self-centeredness and toward love and the benefit of others. Virtuous moral behavior, doing what's right at the right time, keeping disciplined and on the right path. The third one, Kshanti Paramita, the perfection of patience. It's a full-time job for me. Perfection of patience, fully facing difficulties and transforming them into the path. Tolerance for people, situations, and experiences, particularly those that are outside of our comfort. Acceptance and forbearance. Virya Paramita, the perfection of joyful effort, rousing ourselves to hopefulness and joy so that we can keep our practice commitments with a bright spirit. Energy, strength, and diligence to stay on the path, even when it becomes difficult and uncomfortable. And I'd love to attribute these words, but I think they're a bit of an amalgamation of different things that I pulled from different, some of it's Norman Fisher, I know for sure. Dhyana Paramita, and as I think everyone knows, the word dhyana in Sanskrit expresses itself in Chinese as Chan, and then in Japanese as Zen, in Korean as Son, in Vietnamese as Tien. Dhyana Paramita, the perfection of meditation. Focused, regular sitting and walking practice to refresh and slow down our heart and mind so that our days and our nights can be firm and calm. Concentration and self-reflection. Concentration on things, again, outside of our immediate understanding. This could be somewhat reflexive here too. This could be concentration on the paramitas. Might be said we meditate on the paramitas. I don't completely understand this. I don't know what it means. Then we just go forward and we do that anyway. And finally, prajna paramita, which we hear referred to, somebody probably knows, 3, 4, 5 times in the Heart Sutra. Prajna paramita, the perfection of understanding, recognizing that nothing is as we think it is, that there's no separation, no tragedy, that nothing is fixed or solid, that there's only love and endless hopelessness beyond, hopefulness beyond and within what happens and what doesn't happen. Letting go of, I love this, letting go of logic and embracing the void. The perfection of understanding pervades all the other five perfections. It is the great gift of Mahayana Buddhist thought, the source and fruit of imagination. I wanted to read those again, not that we're going to talk about all of them tonight, but it kind of gives a bit of a context for how this goes. So I'll try to keep this tight so we can talk a little bit. So the first of these, Dana Paramita or generosity, and what Norman said is the giver, the receiver, and the giving are all empty. We heard this from Nancy Baker too in her book about the 10 grave precepts. No killer, nothing killed, no killing. There's a passage from Norman's book that I think really frames this well. And he says, someone once asked Tang master Baizhang why giving is the gateway to the Bodhisattva path. And Baizhang answered that it's because to practice giving is to practice letting go. The monk then asked, what do we let go of? And Baizhang said, you let go of narrow views. You let go of the idea that things are small and tight, graspable, and possessable. Each one of these sentences, each one of these words is a nugget, I think, for at least for me. I'm just sharing my experience of this with you. But letting go of the notion that things are possessable. I'd sure like to know that I possess my house, but thousands of people in Marshall and thousands of people in LA can disabuse me of that notion. So in my view, at the core of this paramita, this generosity, Dana Paramita, is the question, or the koan, who gives, who receives, and what's being given. Norman says that meditation is the best way to cultivate what he calls the expansive attitude of generosity. He suggests that we pay close attention to our thoughts and our viewpoints, presumably as much or more off the cushion as on, and that we notice when we become pinched or protective or small or fearful or not generous or stingy. If I give $1 to that guy, he's just going to drink it up. In the traditional Buddhist texts, there's 3 types of gifts that are mentioned. Material things such as food, shelter, clothing, money. Spiritual teachings and inspiration. And the last one I love the most, fearlessness. Think of generosity in terms of your my interactions, our interactions with people, and that the thing that we're giving them the most is fearlessness. You have no reason to fear me. I love you. I'm here to support you. Norman says to give the gift of fearlessness is to give others the sense that they matter, that they are respected, cared for, and secure. And this kind of giving of fearlessness, it surely doesn't suggest that there won't be pain, that there won't be suffering, and perhaps even catastrophe. In fact, rather, it recognizes and accepts the potential or even the inevitability of those things. This may not work. I think we're all naturally very generous. Um, Speaking for myself, I'm also very selfish. I'm stingy and protective. So for me, this one is a forever practice, this generosity, perfection. And how often, think about this, maybe this will stimulate some conversation afterwards, because this is intimate for me. How often when I give something to someone do I ever so subtly expect recognition or thanks? I called her on her birthday, as I do every year, and she never calls me back. So that's the kind of a giving that has a little hook in it. It has a condition in it. It has an expectation of quid pro quo. And it seems that if we're truly practicing this Dana Paramita, this generosity, perfection, it surely can't come along with a quid pro quo. We give and we expect nothing in return. Not that we're nihilistic or negative or cynical or anything like that. We give and we're just empty of any expectation that something's going to happen now, let alone something that will assuage my self-image or my ego to make me feel like I'm a good guy. And what we give, this generosity, again, as we said before, it can be material, it can be money, it can be like Norman says, fearlessness. It can be our attention as well. I've got a I've got a busy brain, and it's taken me years to train myself to really listen when I'm having a conversation with someone and not be planning the next clever thing to say. This is a big one for me. This is a moment by moment one. Slow down, calm your mind, and listen. What are they saying to you? Fully pay attention to whoever I'm with. Listen deeply without any thought or without any judgment. Validate the other person. It's a profound experience. Or even beyond that, I can stop listening altogether just because I've heard it all before, or I think I have. Or worse, I can become defensive. I can move into, well, I don't agree with you, or is what you said about me? That's bullshit. I don't do that. I think you're talking about your dad. How many of us have had that conversation? I can stop being generous, attentive. I can stop offering fearlessness. And in those times, I've stopped practicing. So maybe this fearlessness that Norman talks about, it's illuminated or brought forward by the deepest interpretation, most profound experience of this paramita. He says, there is no again, there is no gift, no giver, no recipient. So there is no generosity. These are empty concepts. I'd love to hear somebody speak to that when we open it up for discussion. There is no gift, there's no giver, there's no recipient. So there is no generosity. at the core of this generosity perfection. These are merely empty concepts. In one perspective, this just, of course, is not apparent. When we provide a meal to somebody in severe need, or work with Kuden at the shelter, or take in an unhoused family, or donate to Oxfam or Doctors Without Borders, there clearly are giver and recipient, giving and generosity. So what does he mean by this absolute perspective? And this is how this paramita and all the paramitas can be worked with as koan. Meditation, zazen, the deepest stillness and silence that we can experience, these are a pathway to understanding generosity of this kind. Be still. Yoda Sensei has said it so many times, and I've got it written down in a number of places. Silence answers every question. But once you realize this, there's no giver, there's no giving, there's no generosity, there's no recipient. It certainly doesn't imply that we don't give materially, spiritually, or by manifesting fearlessness. To the contrary. To the contrary. I made a list of just, again, maybe some of these came from Norman too, I don't remember. Uh, little things we can do. And this is oftentimes with these bigger practices like the paramitas. The way into them is through little things, little acts. Wipe a counter in a public restroom after you use it so the next person's experience is one of cleanliness. Intentionally make a point of smiling at people, strangers, cashiers, the toll booth guy, even though you might be feeling kind of blue that day. Ask others how they're doing. How's their family doing? How are your kids? And here's one of the harder ones for some of us. Be generous to yourself. Because we say we're interconnected, don't we? Do we believe it? Oh, I can't be generous to myself. I need to be giving to other people all the time so that I'm like Mother Teresa. No, be generous to yourself. Each day, give yourself something to do that's healthy and life affirming, even if it's watching basketball. Send friends and family cards or call them. So sometimes when somebody's having a hard time, and there's a lot of this going on right now, it's not necessarily the most generous thing to do to take, to try to console or assure them of desirable outcomes. Because we don't know. It might go further pear-shaped. It might end in disaster. But merely being present seems simple, but just being present might be the best gift. And we will all fail at this, perhaps even daily. And so our practice then is give ourselves the gift of forgiveness and understanding and try again. I tend to look at this paramita practice as three tenets practice. I'll understand conditions when I practice non-knowing. That's the front door into these paramitas. I'll observe conditions within myself and the world and other people when I bear witness in stillness. And only from that position of not knowing and bearing witness or looking at the world, looking at the other person, looking at a condition, and not turning away in silence. Only from that position can I act in a loving, generous way. And that's stepping off the 100-foot pole to take a step and try to do something to help, even something simple. Step by step, moment by moment. We've got this opportunity to see when and where we hold back, how we restrict our generosity and withhold our love. But through the practice of Dana Paramita, we can learn to let go, to open our hand, even just a little bit, and give of ourselves to others. One of the other, maybe it's, I guess it's a metaphor, but another perspective on these is, and I've used this term before, but that they're mirrors. They're mirrors. So we have this mirror of generosity. And yeah, we use the word perfection, not so much as it's an absolute, but that it's a process against which, it's just like the precepts, against which I get to see my behavior. And sometimes I think about how genuine I am with this. I won't say names, but there are figures in our public life these days that are on the news all day, every day. And if one of those folks was standing on the side of Lee Hill with a broke down car, would I stop? Would I run them over? What would I do? How generous can I be? How still can I be? And just pull the car over and say, looks like you need some help. You need a ride to town? There's a test. So I think I went a little longer than I wanted to, but thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And let's let's take a little time and I hope that stimulated some thought or feeling or question or um, even pushback.